We have to put something to bed here that everybody argues about all the time, but the evidence is in. Dr. Kurt Maselli is the guest. He is the medical director at Do No Harm. There's an HHS study debunking evidence for sex change procedures. Let's chat with him now. Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're very
welcome. Doing great.
Thanks for coming. So what do we find? I know that one side says that if you're stuck in a body that you don't feel good in, you should have all your parts cut and moved around, and then you'll be who you want to be, not who God made you, and you'll be happier. Is that the truth?
Yeah, these are really confused kids, unfortunately, that really are struggling. And I think we need to recognize that the answer to gender confusion isn't irreversible medical interventions like taking hormones or having surgeries and such. And we know, unfortunately, it's thousands of kids, right? My organization, Do No Harm, we have a database that's compiled this, and we've actually seen that over 5,700 children from 2019 to 2023 have actually had sex trait modifying surgeries. And so that's the removal of healthy body parts, right, to conform to a desired gender. And it's a girl, for example, who thinks she might be a boy, having her breast removed. I mean, these are serious matters, and the HHS report really does provide a comprehensive review that shows there's just a lack of robust evidence to support these practices and these procedures. The benefits aren't there, and the harms are tremendous, and that's really the challenge of these poor kids, whether it's the resulting infertility, the early onset osteoporosis, the cardiovascular disease. I mean, the list goes on, as well as the regret that some of these children ultimately have later on. So it's really good to have this HHS report that provides this comprehensive review. It looks at many, many different systematic studies that are out there, and it really analyzes them to find that the evidence just isn't there to support these procedures.
Right, and nothing is 100%. Some of them who change are fine with it and are glad they did it, but I don't think anyone should allow their child to do these things before they're 18, because I feel like it's child abuse. I truly do. To take your child to the store and let them pick out dresses and stuff, it just, to me, just seems wrong. And I really feel like there's no gender-specific clothing that everybody should wear. But if you are the one who is pushing your child to feel this way, then you've got to screw loose, for one thing, and I think it's child abuse. Now, if the kid comes up with it on their own and asks for Barbies and wants to wear dresses and stuff like that, I don't see any harm in letting them play with toys or put on a certain clothing. But when you start getting into their physicality and changing their body and their mind and their hormones and stuff like that, I mean, if we did this 30 years ago, these parents would have went to prison. This is child abuse.
Gender nonconformity has been part and parcel to human nature and to who we are as a people and in our society. I think we've really, as a medical society ourselves, and as doctors and such, we have an obligation to protect vulnerable patients. We have an obligation to let evidence and caution guide us, and not let it be ideology and really going down a pathway that leads to these irreversible changes. And I think, unfortunately, medical societies in this country have just abdicated that responsibility of protecting the interests of the young and of all people. And this is really a concern, especially when we are talking about children, and especially when we see the examples from other countries such as England or Finland or Sweden, where they have looked at the evidence, much as our HHS report has done as well. But to look at the evidence and sort of say these radical procedures are by no means the right answer for kids. And in fact, if anything, let's start with psychotherapy. Let's start with understanding where the children are coming from and understanding the other mental illnesses that might be going on. Let's treat those illnesses with the appropriate therapies and supports that we can provide. Let's really be the clinicians that we're meant to be and not rush kids onto a pathway that's just going to really hurt their lives continuously. So it's such an important issue for us to address.
It really is, and it needs to be done now. And everybody who's sending me hate mail saying I'm a hater, I'm a phobe, I'm this, I'm not. I have people in my family who live as the opposite sex, who are grown adults who chose to do so. I have no problem with them. I have no problem with them living whatever life they want to live. But this was a choice they got to make after they were 18. We're talking about kids here, little kids. Now, Kurt, I was the biggest tomboy in the world. You would have thought I was a boy when I was a kid because I had all brothers and I did boy stuff. That's all I ever did. I mean, I worked on cars. I played football. I did those things. But I never wanted to have my body hacked apart and changed because by the time I was 17, I was all girl. I still like to do boy things to this day, but I'm glad my parents weren't the type to just say, let's go all in and start changing her into a boy.
Yeah, and that's where medicine really needs to come in and to offer that common sense advice to families, to parents, because certainly parents and kids, they're struggling through this matter. And when they hear experts say medical conversion is the way to go, pediatric transition, no, that's not the answer. And you're right. I mean, this has really been very much a recent phenomenon that we've seen at such levels in the past 10 or 15 years or so, and it's remarkable. And when you look at it, it's very different than what traditionally we've seen in terms of gender dysphoria. I mean, typically gender dysphoria related to young boys starting in their youth, it was maybe 1 in 30,000, 1 to 100,000 kids that would experience this. And we're now at a point where 1 in 1,000 kids is receiving a hormone for gender transition. This has gotten to a level that is just unmatched, and much of it is driven by social transition, and exactly, you have your friend group, and you see them doing it, and then you do it, and many of these kids, I think over 70% of the cases, they actually have another comorbid mental illness, and so we need to focus on treating the depression, the anxiety, the autism, those other ailments that they're suffering from, and unfortunately, when many of these kids get into a gender clinic, they're just sort of seen in that light as having gender dysphoria with nothing else, and the answer is just to medically transition, and that is not the way to go. We've got to look at the totality of the individual and really see them for who they are and understand them and hear them and provide that psychotherapy, that support that, again, everyone ultimately wants. They want the best medical care, and unfortunately, it's so important for us to read this report, to understand this report, and to look at the evidence and see the harms that we're doing and recognize that, there is a better way. There are models out there. There's psychotherapy. We can look to our friends and neighbors across the sea and, again, see the positive impact that we can have with providing therapeutic support for kids. And, Fawn, to your point of being a tomboy and such, some kids who might feel like this, the vast majority grow out of those thoughts and such. And that's something that we just don't realize. I mean, it's upwards 80, 85%. And so why are we treating something where kids are going to grow out of it? And we can't pick and choose and know which kid is going to grow out of it and which kid isn't. And so, we've just got to recognize the harms that are out there. And much like that adage in medicine and the name of my organization, really first do no harm, protect the vulnerable kids, and support them in a positive way that's compassionate and caring.
Yeah, and we're running out of time, but it's okay to say no to your child. Just because they throw themselves on the floor and say, I want, does not mean you have to give in. I'm very grateful to my parents for not letting me get a Def Leppard tattoo on my forehead like I wanted to do when I was 14 years old. Thank you to my mom and dad for not letting me do that, because I would have done it, and it would have been permanent, just like these things that they're doing to their bodies. Dr. Kurt Maselli, medical director, Do No Harm, HH study debunking the evidence for sex change procedures. If you want to have them as an adult, knock yourself out. Let your children morph into what they are supposed to be, and then let them choose, because they might change their mind. Kurt, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. Bye-bye.